Devin Pike with the Dallas International Film Festival, and one of the roots of the festival springs from the Deep Ellum Film Festival, where the focus was on the arts community and movies that had to deal with music and fantastic musicians. That tradition carries on with several of the documentaries here at the festival this year, including Road to Austin. The director, Gary Fortin, is here. Gary, thanks for bringing this film to Texas, man. Because it's born out of the Texas music scene, and it just feels like a natural fit to have it here. But it's incredible in a lot of ways. So first off, thanks for bringing it to Diff, man.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
I'm sure when you started the project, you didn't foresee the love letter that it would turn into for Stephen Brutin. So I'm curious, when you were first looking at the concert film, was there a narrative that you wanted to go with originally, or was there you just wanted to get a performance of all these fantastic musicians on stage at the same time?
Well, it's interesting. The name of the film is obviously Road to Austin, and the running joke between Chris Christopherson and I is we never realized how long the road to Austin would be. We started this project 4 years ago, the film project. But actually, prior to that, the original concert that you're referring to was actually created by myself and Stephen Brutin. We actually designed that. My production company is the 4Max Group. My son's name is Max, so it's 4Max, and it was named by Stephen. So back in 2007, when we set off to do this large-scale concert for upwards of 20,000 people, it was a multi-million-dollar show that happened in one night. And as a lot of people, especially in Austin, realize that Austin is no stranger to large-scale live musical events. So when you take on something like this, the bar is pretty high. And when I sat around with Stephen and I, and we were figuring out what we're going to do next, we had just come off of another big production. I'm sitting there with Stephen in his music room, kicking around ideas, and he said, Gary, he goes, I've always wanted to honor Chris Christopherson. And for your viewers who don't know, I mean, Stephen was Chris's guitarist for 45 years. Right. And he was in every major motion picture that Chris was in. He's always the guy that got killed, but anyway. But not in A Star Is Born, he didn't. So it was interesting. So when we did that, that's kind of how the riff started of how we would create this. And then I said, well, if we're going to do that, Stephen, let's bring in everybody from your career. Let's bring in Bonnie and Delbert. And then the list keeps going. There's 60 people that play on the show. Well, unfortunately, it's very bittersweet. Very shortly after that, Stephen got diagnosed with cancer. And we didn't realize at the time that this would be his last major performance. And then the concert actually turned around, and it was just a big, giant celebration of Stephen's life by the time that we got out on the stage. What a lot of people don't realize, or probably nobody, especially the ones who have seen the film, is when Stephen comes out on that stage, he hadn't eaten solid food in 4 months. He couldn't speak because he had chemo and he was 1.5 weeks out of chemo and radiation, and he had feeding tubes hanging out of his stomach. Whenever you see him sitting down in the film, he's feeding. And you wouldn't know it because it was a superhuman effort. But that's, your question was, did we, the labor of love, did we know what we were going to do? Well, no, we didn't know Stephen was going to die. And I had all this footage. I mean, my camera crew is the same camera crew from the TV show Austin City Limits, so it was done very large scale. And, sitting back with Christopherson 4 years ago at Willie's Picnic, and when it was like, now it's time to do something in Stephen's name. Not a memorial to him, because that would, if Stephen would come back and haunt me if I did that. But it was time to make a difference in Stephen's name, hence the Artist Wellness Program that Chris and I are launching in his name. So there's a very, very, very long answer to a short question.
Well, but it deserves a long answer, because the background in it is, when I was first doing research on the film, I love music documentaries, and I love watching people's approach to how they film it, but it's so much more than that, because when you're told, well, it's a music documentary, well, fine, no. And as a cancer survivor, I also know that when you're going through chemotherapy, it kills you by degrees just to survive. And I was lucky; a lot of people are not. So it's powerful, and it brings back the memories for me as well. So as Stephen's prepping for the show, were there I mean, were there allowances that you were making in the production to make sure that he was as comfortable as he could be over the course? Because a 3-hour show, I mean, because you said 60 different performers on there, you want to make sure that everybody, has a good time in the audience, because the majority of them aren't going to be aware of what Steven's going through.
That's a great question, and congratulations on coming out the other side of your battle. I actually now know more about cancer than I've ever wanted to know in my life. Steven, literally a week and a half before we started rehearsals. Now, the show, when you see the movie, it's 73 minutes long, and it has 8 songs from the performance, and then it has the whole historical documentary in the front of it. When the Blu-ray comes out in another month and a half, it's 3 hours and 40 minutes long, and it's 38 songs. Okay, and the actual concert in the park that night was almost 4 hours long. So the band had to learn 40 songs in a week. And a lot of people, when they see a show like this, they go, wow. But if you really start to think about it, this is upwards of a 15-piece band that Steven had put together. So the rehearsals that come before this is where the superhuman effort really comes into play. It was 10 to 15 hours a day for 7 days, consecutive days prior to the show. Now again, you back that out, Steven got out of chemo and radiation 3 days before rehearsal started. So Steven came home from MD Anderson in Houston and was pretty banged up. And that's the biggest understatement I'll make today. And I went down to Steven's house, and I was down in his music room with him. And he had, again, the feeding tubes, and he couldn't speak, and it was bad. And we hugged each other. I hadn't seen him in a while, and we had the obligatory cry. And I looked at Steven and said, Steven, you don't have to do this. Because now I've got to take off my hat, my friend hat, and put on the producer hat. And Steven looked at me and he said, Gary, you don't understand. I have to do this. This is what pulled me through treatment. And we got into rehearsals, and Steven looked, it was horrifying to see him. And anybody who knows Steven Brutin, he was a very handsome Adonis man, if you will. He's a movie star. And, we looked at him. He had lost so much weight. And then we get into rehearsals, and as soon as the music started, I'm choking it back right now. The power of music and the power of the love of his friends that happened in there. And here they came, because you had to keep in mind there were 60 artists on this show, and they were all connected because of Steven Brutin, all of them. And they weren't just friends. These were some of the deepest, love affairs, if you will, musically and through friendships over a very, very long career. So the first 3 days of rehearsal went on, and that's the band kind of just going through the paces, working out the music before the principal acts start to show up. Well, on day 4, in walks Chris. And Chris hadn't seen Steven since he had gone through treatment. He was off on a film set. And he walked in, and you could literally, with no exaggeration, it was almost miraculous, you could see the color come right back into Steven's skin. I mean, he was gray before this started. I mean, as you well know, chemo is a cruel animal of what it does to the human body. And then when Bonnie showed up and the love that happened. So when you're talking about the filming of this and the way that we shot it and the way that I blocked and framed it, it's not cut like a typical concert film. And in my career, of people who know, I've done lots of this stuff. For a guy who's only 21, I've been doing this for 35 years.
You don't look a day over 23, so phenomenal.
So how we cut it that night, because when you watch this film, and I think even in the festival cut you'll see this, there's so much love on that stage. And if there was not 20,000 people out there, the show wouldn't have suffered at all, because the band and the performers, they weren't performing for an audience. I'm not saying that they were ignoring them, but this show would have happened if it was just in somebody's living room, because it was literally a celebration of not only Steven's life, but these are people who all knew each other. And it was just unlikely combinations of music. I mean, you had opera and conjunto and rock and roll, so you don't really get to see these these musicians don't get to play on a lot of these types of genres of music. So we cut the film very, very close. And I wanted to give the viewer the sense of that you were one of us on the production team, or you were a member on the stage. Because again, there was upwards of 17 musicians on the stage sometimes. And if you really watch this, you can, when you look beyond the act and you look in the wings, there's Bonnie Raitt, there's Christopherson, and nobody left the stage. Typically on these large scale shows that we do, you know, you've kind of got, I'll use the word divas, but I'm not trying to be condescending. People will just wait in their bus until it's, you know, knock on the door, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, you're up.
You're saving your energy for actually when you hit the stage, and you don't want to do anything that distracts from that.
And Chris, when you see the long play version, he'll tell the story, because Chris stayed on the side of the deck all night long, and he kept whistling, and he blew his voice out. And he'd get out there and he was like, oh man. I mean, everyone was having such a good time. So hopefully that's what the viewers will take away from this thing. It's, you know, you're going to be part of the show. You're not just in the audience.
What I really dug about the music itself is that it's such a great cross-section of the last really 4 decades of not just rock, not just blues, not just Texana, but everything. And just to see the virtuosity of these musicians just killing it.
Yeah.
And really just playing their hearts out. And I mean, the love for Stephen obviously was there, but also just because that opportunity to have that group of musicians together on one stage, it'll never happen again.
Well, the core band, or the rhythm section, if you will, was made up of Brandon Temple and Yogi Musgrove. And the two of those guys, which was originally, you know, that was Stephen's band. If Stephen broke it down to just a 3-piece, those were the guys. And I remember, you know, and I've been friends with these people for many, many, many years. And Stephen, the analogy that he used one night, he said, playing in front of Brandon and Yogi is like being strapped to the front of the space shuttle on re-entry. And he goes, you could just get in front of these guys and hum a kazoo and be a rock star. You know, and these two guys alone, they're telepathic when they play. They've been playing together for so long. That's actually Janet Jackson's rhythm section from the Rhythm Nation tour,
Sure.
and on and on. And now when you add to that, if you look at who's up on that stage, I believe our count was there are 9 Grammy Awards just across the house band. You've got Ian McLagan from the Faces and the Rolling Stones in the house band. You've got David Grissom. You've got Eric Johnson. You've got, you know, and it's another testament to Stephen that, you know, Stephen could have handled the guitar work all by himself with one hand tied behind his back. He's Stephen Brutin. But he wasn't. He was the musical director that knew what palette to play with. He's very much like an artist, knowing what color to bring this thing in. And yes, the genres of music were very, very important, that we did not just a variety of artists. Every 2 songs, another artist would come up, was kind of the premise of the show. And it wasn't just changing artists, it changed genres of music. And another part that you're going to see, and there's a little bit of this in the festival cut, but you'll definitely see it in the long play version of it, is, which is very important to Stephen and I. You know, we'd always sit around and talk about music. I'm also a musician, and that's how Stephen and I were friends on many, many different levels. And we'd always talk about, you know, you'd go see a concert, whoever, a big name, and those nights when some guest would walk out on the stage. Right? You might go see, you know, Aerosmith and somebody else walks out. Or you might go, you could go see Bruce Springsteen and Joe Wheely comes out and plays them. Those are like once in a lifetime kind of things. So we set out to have every performance in this concert be one of those. And we took a lot of the up and coming artists of Austin. Not saying that they're nobody. These are people who all deserve world stages. Their talent warrants that. Financially, because the music industry isn't what it used to be, you're not going to be on a stage like this. I mean, this stage was built for the Rolling Stones to play on. So you've got someone like Carolyn Wonderland come out. Well, Carolyn Wonderland has a phenomenal band, but she doesn't have a 12-piece band because it's just not financially feasible to do.
You can't shove them on stage with Maggie Mays together.
But she did it this night, and Bonnie Raitt is her lead guitarist. Right?
Yeah.
Or you'd have Delbert McClinton coming out and just playing harmonica behind somebody else. So that was the mixing and the matching of all this. And in the film, you'll see on Delbert's song, Bonnie just grabs her guitar, and this was unrehearsed. And I remember, you know, my stage manager come up and going, because I'm in a headset, and he's like, Bonnie said she's coming out. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. Because it's unscripted. That's the last thing you want to hear as a producer. And all of a sudden, Bonnie comes out playing one of Stephen's guitars that was close by. And she just plugs in. And you'd have thought that they had rehearsed this thing for 25 years. And she just wanted to come out and play, kind of uneven aware that there's 20,000 people watching, let alone that we're filming it. And that's the kind of thing that I hope the viewers take away.
You've mentioned the Blu-ray, and that gives me hope that there is distribution set up for the film after it leaves the festival circuit.
Yes.
So if they're not lucky enough to get one of the tickets here at the festival, where can they see the film?
Okay, so indulge me a little bit here, because this is really why Chris Christopherson and I, and Ken Kushnick, who is also Steven's manager and part of our production company, the reason why the three of us are doing this is, yes, we're proud of the film, but that's not why we set out to do this. So 100% of the proceeds from this film will go to create an artist wellness program in the name of Stephen Brutin. So a lot of people are asking about the distribution. Are you going to have a theatrical release? And I'm not saying no, but the first step is we're going to release this on Blu-ray, the long play version. It'll be a double disc Blu-ray disc. It'll be out in another month and a half. For anybody who understands these type of productions, the publishing and the clearances are daunting. And when you look at the long play version of this, there's over 50 songs that have to be cleared. And these aren't just any song. You've got On the Road Again by Willie Nelson. You've got some big songs.
You have a cleric level music clearance guy.
It's taken 2 years to get this thing done,
Yeah.
and it is done. So the main reason why we're coming straight to Blu-ray is, again, 100% of the proceeds will go to create this artist wellness program. And I'd like to take just a second to explain what that is. Stephen made a comment right before he passed. One of the last things that Stephen did was the movie Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges. And Stephen won his Grammy Award posthumous because of that. He wrote 6 of the songs in the film. And what a lot of people don't realize, he was actually on set every day with Jeff Bridges. He was the coach for Jeff Bridges, just teaching him how to hold the guitar or whatever. And those are his fingers that you see playing. And Jeff will tell you, if you watch his interviews, he based the story on the life of Stephen Brutin. A lot of people think, oh, it's Christopherson. No, it's not. It's on Stephen. And one of the last things that Stephen said, he goes, I don't know why we wait until people become sick before we try to help them. And that was like a knife through my heart. And he said, Gary, and Ken, promise me that we're going to do something about this. And we did. And well, here we are 4 years later. So here's what the Artist Wellness Program is. Over our 4-year journey, what we've learned is most artists, and this isn't just musicians, this is Artist Wellness Program. Most artists, sadly, don't have health insurance. Yes, we've got Obamacare now, and it's kind of moving, I guess, in the right direction. But healthcare is an ugly mistress. And as you well know, it's scary when you're going in. And when you're going through the treatment, you surely can't perform while you're doing it. There's no way to make money. And you're talking about people that, even if they did have health insurance, they don't have large bank accounts to live off of. So this is wellness versus healthcare. And what we've learned about this is, and I met with a gentleman who's actually in the film, Dr. Chandler, who's an affiliate of Dr. Oz. And they have these biomarker tests, big fancy word, right? Or it's a very elaborate blood test. So they take 2 test tubes of blood out of your arm, and you get back a book on the current state of your health. And it does 250 tests all at once. When you get your annual physical, you get like 4, right? Those are biomarkers. But this gives you a comprehensive book. And it's written in simple English. It's not medical gobbledygook. And you can look at this thing, and it's going to tell you exactly what's going on in your body. It's going to let you know what you're deficient in, right? And I don't care how healthy you are, something's going to be vitamin C, pick one of them. So now the Artist Wellness Program is they get the first test, they get the supplements that their bodies need determined by what this blood is. They get their Fitbits, the wearable devices that show them their daily activity. And as they stay compliant for 90 days, they'll get the second blood test to give you the delta. Because if you become symptomatic, that's when these killing diseases are almost impossible to treat. So in closing, the whole goal of the Artist Wellness Program is to allow artists to go get a simple test so they can find out what's going on. And if there is something going on, to be able to get it before it's become symptomatic, when it's so much easier to treat. And that's what we're doing in Stephen's name. And that's the whole reason why we created this film.
It's phenomenal. Obviously, the information will be with the Blu-rays when it ships, but
Yes.
where can people find out information about the program now?
Right now, you can go to www.rtafilm.com is the website for the film, and there's a tab up on that website called the AWP, Artist Wellness Program. Or you can go to artistwp.org, and that is there'll be a lot more information there in a very short period of time, but it'll give you an overview of what we're doing. And we'll start taking pre-orders and all that in a very short period of time for the film. And there's a 501(c) attached to this thing. So we look forward to it, and we look forward to bringing the Artist Wellness Program up to Dallas and Fort Worth. Stephen's hometown is Fort Worth. So it's very important up here. And we're so thrilled to be here, and we can't thank the Dallas Film Festival enough for allowing us to come up here and tell our story.
I know that you said that you know more about cancer and cancer treatment than you wanted to. Did you ever think, like 7 years ago, did you think that you would be working on a foundation like this at this stage in your career?
No. What's when you watch the long play Blu-ray, and I'm sure anybody watching this right now, none of us are unaffected by cancer. I remember as a kid, yeah, I might know one or two people, you might have heard it, but for whatever reason now, everybody knows somebody, if not a close family member, who's going through the struggle. So something's got to, it's not working, right? It seems to be getting worse, not better, though all this research has been going. I keep saying, so we're spending more money on research, but more people are getting, something's wrong with the healthcare system. And I'm not going to be the guy to try to figure out what that is. I'm not that smart. I'm a filmmaker. But, when you watch this, there's a poet on the show. And I say was. His name is Raul Salinas, who's an Indian chief. He's Maya Angelou's favorite poet, who's actually on the show. He died 4 months later. This is his last performance. He died of stomach cancer. My senior editor, George O'Dwyer, and he's from the Dallas area up here. He owned 501 Post. He died of brain cancer 3 months after Stephen. Stephen's dead. Bill Narum, who worked on this film, was another founding member of our company. He's dead. Bonnie's brother has passed of cancer. I mean, there was just the people who worked on the show. There's a pretty long tombstone, and one is too long. And that's really when we looked at this and just said, something's got to be done. And you can come out right now and raise some money and go give it to whatever organization. And we just said, you know what, that's not measurable, right? Because I don't know how much of the money actually gets down to the cost. I don't know, and I don't have the time to go find out. So, that's one thing that was so Stephen. And Chris, for those of you who know or may know a little bit about Chris is not a man of many words, but the words that come out of his mouth they hit the bullseye and they hit it in the middle quick. It may take me, I'm long-winded, he can say it in 3 words. And, when we sat down and we realized this is measurable. So as the money comes in, as the program starts off, you'll be able to meet and see the people, right? And we come out the pilot program, the people who are going to go through this thing, does it work, yes or no? And it's amazing what you're going to learn from this testing. And hopefully it's a model to take forward to other underserved populations. And a lot of people ask, what is the plan for that? And I said, look, the reason why we're starting with artists is because artists are the best evangelists on the planet. They have followings. Yes, you've got people in the impoverished parts of any city that we should go help too, and hopefully we will. But they don't have 25,000 Facebook friends. Or Bonnie's instance, they don't have millions of fan bases. And that's kind of the premise of this, is to get it out and to keep it moving. And the artist community is, and I'm gonna butcher this, but Chris had made a comment once, basically that if it wasn't for the arts, no, the arts are the last frontier between complete chaos and humanity. And those are the kind of things that Chris would say, and it usually takes you'll look at him and go like, and then about 20 minutes later when you're walking away, when it comes off the back wall and it hits you, it's like, man, that's why he's Chris Christopherson, because what he can do with words. And that's very, very true. I mean, it's without the arts, without music, without painting, without film, without all this stuff, wow, what are you left with? I guess you're left with commerce and government? I don't want to live in that world.
no one should have to, because that's the world none of us want to live in. That's the mission of this festival. It's the mission of anybody who picks up a microphone, a camera, a pen, to just make the world better around them. And that's the thing that astonishes me about the work you're doing with the Wellness Foundation, is just being able to sustain that kind of art, because you give everything to it. You don't have time to take care of yourself. You don't have the resources half the time.
No, you don't. And this is the underserved population, and the artist community is an underserved population that is being decimated the fastest and the quickest. Really, when you look at the statistics, and I have, that's where it's getting, because these are people who are on the road, who don't have all the financial, I mean, on and on. Yes, there's some exceptions to the world, but not everybody's Bonnie Raitt. Not everybody's Chris Christopherson. And they'll be the first to tell you that. And when you look at them, they'll tell you that, when's the last time you went to a doctor? The only time these people would go to a doctor is because, ow, or achoo, or meaning they're symptomatic. And now the only choice you have is to enter healthcare, which is not designed for you. It's just not. The business model is not designed for you. And the biggest part about it is, it's not only that you have the financial barriers to healthcare, which you do, but you're talking about people who live, any artist will tell you that you're always thinking 90 days out, especially when you're a musician. You have to keep booking your shows. And the last thing that you're gonna do is cancel a show because you need to go get fill in the blank, let alone chemo, and that's the way and it's not only do I cancel that show, how do I rebook that show? Because it affects my reputation, my name, and it's not me being a flake and not showing up for my show. I'm generally, so many artists come in, dragging a leg, if you will, to play that show. And that's the biggest hurdle for the artists. It's not that they can't only afford the health care. Even if they had the health insurance, they can't afford to not paint, not make the film. If you're a filmmaker and you've got money coming in and you're on a deadline and you've got investors going in, and we all tell them, it'll be done in 3 months, which means a year, right? Right. But we all know we can stretch that. But all of a sudden, if you come back to them and go, and I have to go take 6 months off to go into, your film's done, and you wouldn't do it.
And all the work you've done to get to that point is gone.
So now wellness becomes important. It's what you don't know. And now we're going to give you the tools for free to know. Now, what you choose to do with it, a lot of people go, hey, a lot of these artists won't. And I'm like, really? So I'll tell you something here. And I've only really told this to one other person interviewing, that there was a dear friend who called me up. She's a musician. She's actually on the show. So that now narrows it down to about 5 people, and I won't give you her name. And called me up, and she had some health issues going on. This is about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And she goes, hey, man, that Fortin test thing that you told me about, is that still available? And we really haven't started the program yet. So I called up Dr. Chandler, told him what's going on. He goes, absolutely, bring her up. And these tests are not cheap if you had to pay for them. They're just not. They're designed for affluent people. Okay. That's as polite as I'll get, right? So I bring her up, and as we're walking in the building, she says, by the way, I pass out when they take blood out of me. And it was like, I wish you would have told me this. But anyway, let's go. So we walk in, and when you take these kind of biomarker tests, it's very important for you to be relaxed. You want to have your body at a state of normalcy, whatever that is. Or a better way to say it is, if you stubbed your toe right before you had the test, that's going to show up because you now have cortisol in your bloodstream, right?
And higher levels of adrenaline as
Absolutely. So we go in, and it was like, okay, calm down. And I said, let's just lie down on the floor and, be, Austin keeping it weird, our, hippie friend Sal. So we lie down, and I know everybody there. And I said, hey, and by the way, I'll go first. And I put out my arm, never thinking that 2 weeks later when I got the test results back and they found 3 tumors in my stomach, and it was setting up to kill me. And I never would have known, because you don't become, the only way that I would known about this is when I became symptomatic, which could have been never, 5 years, 5 days, you don't know. And that would have been one of those. I don't know, and I'm glad I don't know. It would have been, what's that? And that's the dreadful day when you go to the doctor when you think you might have, acid indigestion or something, and they go, no, you don't have indigestion, but you have stomach cancer. which is second to pancreatic cancer. It's not if, it's when you get that. So, I swear I would never actually tell the story because it's not about me. This is about Stephen and the artists, and I guess I fall into the artist category. But, when I got that test result back, and it's written about you, I assure you, you read it, and you'll hang on every word. And when I went back in and found out that, yes, there were 3 growths that would they have ever metastasized into cancer? I don't know, and I'm glad I don't have to find out at this point. So, if nothing else, your first question was, what was one of the big things that happened on the road to Austin? I said, it's a long road. No, I had no earthly idea that when I started to do this as a labor of love for my friend, who I'd give all of this up to have him back, he ended up saving my life. And, I know it works. That's why I'm pretty passionate about it. And I know it's going to help everybody. And it is measurable. That's the whole thing. It's not that how many dollars went into this and it went to research. This is meet so-and-so. They had it done. And it'll be everything from I found out something I didn't know about me, that I have the hereditary biomarker for heart disease, which doesn't mean you're going to get it. But it'll show you the stuff that's in these test results, and if you don't make some corrections and you are hereditarily, predisposed to it, guess what? That's the road you're heading down. It allows you to make an adjustment, or down to the person like myself that was like, hey, it's what you don't know that's going on in your body, and now you know, and if you didn't know, you'd have died.
What I dig about this project, and it's weird to say that, but what I love about it is it's almost a candy coating to get you into understanding what the Artist Wellness Program is going to be. And again, thank you for bringing this movie to us, and thank you for everything you're doing for the program, because I'm going to force 17 of my friends who are all performing musicians to pay attention to this. So thank you. It is an absolute gas. And again, if you just take the surface of it, it's a phenomenal music documentary or it's a phenomenal concert film in and of itself, even without the rest of the story on top of it.
These are the last performances ever of Chris Christopherson and Stephen Brutin, and they're not small-scale performances.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty amazing, and
it's a hell of a gig, man.
And we got pretty heavy here at the end. And with the program, the whole premise of this is. You got to be entertained. This is going to be cool. This isn't the talking head, the medical thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is artists taking care of artists. We're not going to sit back and we're not going to wait for somebody else to figure out this for us, right? And we have the power to do that with film, with music, with all these other mediums at the artists, because we have the best bully pulpit on the planet. How do I know? Look what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
I'm assuming at least somebody is going to see this and talk about it. Right.
Absolutely.
And if you and I were 2 congressmen sitting here, how many people would be clicking on it except other congressmen?
Well, right? If we were 2 congressmen, it'd be a boring conversation. No one would want to watch it.
That's right. And we would be talking about something completely different. So this is about something that's measurable. And it's about, when you finally quit waiting for someone else to solve a problem and you pick up the shovel yourself and go, which is so Chris Christopherson.
Yeah.
Right? Chris has never endorsed anything in his entire career. And this film opens with him, welcome to the Stephen Brutin Wellness Initiative. And he doesn't do that lightly. And, again, thank you so much for your time and giving me a voice for this.
It's a message that needs to be heard. Thank you for coming in, and thanks for bringing the film to us. It's an absolute gas.
Tomorrow night, please come see the film. It's 4:30 at Angelica 6.
It's not sold out yet?
I don't think it is.
We'll fix that.
I just realized there's actually some more room in the theater. It holds, I think, 300 people.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger houses. You can find out more about this film and everything here at the festival at dallasfilm.org. Again, I can't thank you enough for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
And thanks for sitting down with us. Really appreciate it.
All right. God bless Stephen Brutin.